Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are going to learn the past perfect continuous tense. Now, don't let the name scare you. I know, it sounds really long and complicated, but the idea is actually very simple. If you understand just one picture, one core idea, you are going to understand this tense forever. Ready? Let's dive right in.
Okay, let's look at our clear agenda for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the core concept. Second, formulas for and since. Third, real-life examples. Fourth, questions and rules. Fifth, let's practice together. And finally, number 6, mastering all past tenses. Don't worry at all. We're going to break this down logically, step by step.
Let's move straight into Section 1, the core concept and timeline. This is where we're going to set up the foundational understanding of how this tense actually works.
Imagine this situation for a second. Imagine yesterday. You started studying English at 5 p.m. You studied, and you studied, and you studied. Then, at 7 p.m., your friend called you. Your friend asked, "What were you doing?" You can say, "I had been studying English for 2 hours." Listen carefully to that. You started studying at 5 p.m., your friend called at 7 p.m., the studying continued for 2 whole hours before your friend called. That is the past perfect continuous. Imagine this timeline in your head. At 5 p.m., I started studying. Between 5 and 7, I was continuously studying. At 7 p.m., my friend called. So I had been studying for 2 hours when my friend called. The absolute most important idea here is this. The activity continued for a period of time before another past event happened.
And this brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the magic meaning. Past perfect continuous simply means an action had been continuing for some time before another point or event in the past. Let's make it even easier. Just remember this flow. Past pointing to continuing, pointing to past. Something started in the past, it continued for some time, then another past event happened. Take our studying example. I had been studying for 2 hours when my friend called. First, I started studying. Then I continued studying. Then my friend called. So we use had been studying.
So the crucial point is right here. This is the easiest memory trick you'll ever find. Remember this. Past perfect equals past before past. We learned that in our previous lesson, right? Now, past perfect continuous equals continuing before past. That's the big difference. Past perfect is, I had studied. Past perfect continuous is, I had been studying. That second one focuses purely on the activity itself and its duration.
Now that we have that core concept locked in, let's move to Section 2, formulas, for and since. This is where we construct the tense mathematically and learn its absolute most important trigger words.
Now let's learn the formula. It's actually incredibly easy. Step 1, subject, plus Step 2, had been, plus Step 3, verb with an ing at the end. That's literally it. Notice something here. Everyone uses had been, then verb plus ing. So just remember the core pattern. Had plus been plus ing. It's always had been plus ing. Say it with me. Had been plus ing. Once more. Had been plus ing.
Here are some examples to show you how consistent this is. I had been studying. She had been working. He had been sleeping. They had been playing. We had been waiting. You had been talking. Now, you might be wondering, why do we use the word been? Well, it's because we're talking about an action that was continuing. For example, if I say I had worked, this tells us the work happened before another past event, but I had been working heavily focuses on the activity continuing. Compare this. I had cleaned the room. The focus there is on the completed cleaning, but I had been cleaning the room for 2 hours. Now the focus is completely on the activity itself and exactly how long it continued.
Now what's really interesting here is the most important trigger word, for. Past perfect continuous is very often used with the word for. For tells us the duration, for 2 hours, for 3 days, for 5 months, for 10 years, for a long time. Here are some examples. I had been studying for 2 hours. She had been working for 5 hours. They had been waiting for 30 minutes. He had been living there for 10 years. The word for always answers the question, how long? Another incredibly important word is since. We can also use since 5 p.m., since Monday, since morning, since 2020, since last year. Example, I had been studying since 5 p.m. when my friend called. It started at 5 p.m., it continued, then my friend called. Remember this golden rule. For equals duration, like 2 hours, 3 days, 5 years. Since equals the starting point, like 5 p.m., Monday, or 2020.
Let's move right along to Section 3, Real-Life Examples and Results. We are going to ground all these grammar rules in relatable, everyday stories.
Let's tell a simple story. Imagine a guy named Rahul. Rahul started waiting for the bus at 8 a.m. He waited and waited and waited. Finally, at 8:30 a.m., his friend arrived. Rahul can say exactly this: "I had been waiting for 30 minutes when you arrived." Why? Because he started waiting at 8, he continued waiting, and his friend arrived at 8:30, so we use had been waiting.
Here is another great example. Imagine your mother comes home. She sees you, your clothes are totally dirty, and you're visibly tired. She asks, "Why are you so tired?" You say, "I had been playing football for 2 hours." You started playing. You continued playing. Then you stopped because you came home. The sentence focuses on the activity and the duration. Now, this is very important, so pay attention. Let's compare. Past perfect, I had studied English for 2 hours. This can focus on the completed activity or the result. Past perfect continuous, I had been studying English for 2 hours. This focuses strongly on the activity continuing over that exact period. Think of it like this. Past perfect points to what was completed. Past perfect continuous points to what had been continuing and for how long.
Let's do another quick comparison. Past perfect, she had cleaned the house before the guests arrived. The focus is on the completed cleaning. Past perfect continuous, she had been cleaning the house for 3 hours before the guests arrived. Now we focus on how long? 3 hours. So continuous equals activity plus duration. Here's a very useful real-life example. Imagine you arrive at your friend's house. You see your friend looking really tired. You ask, "Why are you tired?" He says, "I had been working all morning." This means he was working for a period of time before you arrived or before that past moment. The activity completely explains the result. He is tired. This is a hugely important use of the past perfect continuous. Listen carefully. Sometimes we use this tense simply because we can see the physical result of an activity. For example, her eyes were red because she had been crying. What happened first? She was crying. Then her eyes were red. The continuous activity explains the visible result. Another example, he was tired because he had been running. He had been running, and that ongoing action caused him to become tired. So remember, past perfect continuous can show a past activity that caused a past result. Let's look at a very important difference. I had worked for 5 hours versus I had been working for 5 hours. Both can actually be correct, but that second sentence gives much stronger attention to the activity continuing over that specific period. That's exactly why past perfect continuous is useful when we really want to emphasize the activity, the duration, and the ongoing nature of the action.
Okay, let's dive into Section 4, Questions, Negatives, and Rules. We'll quickly cover how to ask questions, how to say no, and I'll give you a crucial warning about some specific verbs.
First, let's learn questions. Questions are super easy here. Just put had at the very beginning. Had plus subject plus been plus verb ing. Listen to these examples. Had you been working? Had she been studying? Had they been waiting? Had he been sleeping? Had you been playing football? Very easy, right? Now let's learn negative sentences. You just use had not been plus verb ing, or the contraction hadn't been plus verb ing. Examples: I hadn't been sleeping. I hadn't been sleeping. She hadn't been working. They hadn't been waiting. He hadn't been studying. Just remember, hadn't plus been plus ing.
Now let's use the word when. This tense is extremely common with when. Example: I had been sleeping when the phone rang. I was sleeping for some time, then boom, the phone rang. Another example: she had been working for 3 hours when her manager called. She worked continuously for 3 hours and then her manager called. We can also use before. Example: I had been studying for 2 hours before I took a break. First I studied. The studying continued for 2 hours. Then I finally took a break. Another example: they had been waiting for an hour before the bus arrived. First they waited, then the bus arrived. Now I need to give you one really important warning. Don't use past perfect continuous with every single verb. Some verbs normally just don't sound natural in continuous forms. For example, we usually say, I had known him for 10 years. We do not say, I had been knowing him for 10 years. That sounds strange. We say, she had wanted a car for years, not she had been wanting a car for years. If you're a beginner, don't stress too much about this. Just remember that some verbs, like knowing or wanting, are normally not used in continuous forms.
All right, it is time for Section 5. Let's practice together. Let's test your understanding in real time, right now. I'll give you the situation, and you give me the sentence. Ready? Situation 1. You started studying at 4 p.m. Your mother called at 6 p.m. How do you say it using our new tense? You'd say, I had been studying for 2 hours when my mother called. Spot on. Situation 2. They started waiting at 7. The bus arrived at 8. We say, they had been waiting for an hour when the bus arrived. Got it? And finally, situation 3. She started working in the morning. Her manager arrived later. This becomes, she had been working all morning when her manager arrived.
Excellent work. Now let's move to our final grand unifying review. Section 6. Mastering all past tenses. We are putting all 4 past tenses side by side to see the big picture.
Let's learn the 4 past tenses together. Now that we have learned all 4, let's look at them side by side. Number 1, simple past. I studied English. This is a finished action in the past. Your memory trick is finished. Number 2, past continuous. I was studying English. This is an action that was happening at a particular time in the past. Your memory trick, happening. Number 3, past perfect. I had studied English before the test. This is an earlier past action. Think before. And number 4, past perfect continuous. I had been studying English for 2 hours before the test, an action that continued for a period before another past event. Think continuing plus how long. The ultimate memory trick is to just remember these 4 key concepts. Simple past equals finished. I studied. Past continuous equals happening. I was studying. Past perfect equals before. I had studied. Past perfect continuous equals duration. I had been studying for 2 hours. That's literally it. If you remember these 4 ideas, you can understand the 4 past tenses so much more easily. Let's look at the final golden formulas and say them together. Simple past, V2. I went, I ate, I played. Past continuous, was or were plus ing. I was going, they were eating, she was playing. Past perfect, had plus V3. I had gone, she had eaten, they had played. Past perfect continuous, had been plus ing. I had been going, she had been eating, they had been playing.
It's time for the final test. Let's see what you learned today. Question 1. Yesterday, I blinked to school. The answer is went, using the simple past. Question 2. At 8 p.m. yesterday, I blinked TV. We use was watching, the past continuous. Question 3. The movie blank before we arrived. Here, the answer is had started, for the past perfect. Question 4. They blank for 2 hours before the bus arrived. This one is had been waiting, applying the past perfect continuous. And question 5, she was tired because she blank all morning. The answer is had been working.
So what is your lifetime memory rule? Whenever you want to choose a past tense, just ask yourself 4 simple questions. Question 1, is it finished? If yes, use simple past. I played. Question 2, was it happening at a particular past time? Use past continuous. I was playing. Question 3, did it happen before another past event? Use past perfect. I had played. Question 4, was it continuing for some time before another past event? Use past perfect continuous. I had been playing.
Here is your final reminder. Please don't try to memorize hundreds of confusing grammar rules. Just remember these 4 core ideas. Simple past equals finished. Past continuous equals happening. Past perfect equals before. Past perfect continuous equals continuing plus duration. And remember this sentence from earlier. I had been studying for 2 hours when my friend called. I started studying, I continued studying, 2 whole hours passed, then my friend called. That is the past perfect continuous. Congratulations, you have now completely conquered all 4 past tenses. You don't need to be afraid of their long names anymore. Understand the situation first, then choose the tense. Keep practicing. Speak simple sentences every single day. And always remember, English becomes easy when you understand the idea, not when you memorize the rule. See you in the next explainer.